It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Thank you so much for being here. I've got so much to get to today, so we're just going to dive right in. Go ahead, text me at 309-451-9299. First, I want to get to J.D. Vance. Okay, I talked about this a little bit yesterday, but the jobs report isn't all that great. And I want to break down these numbers because it's so important, because the Democrats, they're just going to continue to claim that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure you get a livable wage. And really what they're doing, they're importing cheap labor at unprecedented levels. We know this with the illegal immigration invasion. And they're reserving job growth solely for the foreign nationals. We're not seeing job growth amongst the American citizenry, but rather we're seeing it amongst the foreign nationals. And I want to break down this jobs report because it's not great. And J.D. Vance tells you a little bit about the truth when it comes to this great jobs report for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, which isn't even great. I do want to chat also about Donald Trump saying something to the effect of, it's in their genes. He was not talking about illegal immigrants. CNN is out there, and this is the new hoax. It's the new hoax. So get ready for this. CNN says Trump will absolutely try to exterminate groups of people. Yeah, that's turning down the temperature. Whatever happened to turning down the temperature, to stopping this hateful rhetoric? Let's keep the rhetoric down. Whatever happened to that? CNN is out there calling Donald Trump Hitler and saying that he's going to exterminate groups of people. That is not what he said. He did not say that the genes of people or that he'd go after people because of their genetic makeup. That is not what Donald Trump said at all. So we're going to get to that here in just a minute. But also, this MSNBC host has a complete meltdown over the fact that Elon Musk was at the Trump rally. He did this really cool leap into the air, and there was a picture of it. It's iconic. It's really cool that Elon Musk is a smart guy. Everybody knows that Elon Musk is a smart guy. And, people who are on the fence about Donald Trump, think about this. Would a guy as smart as Elon Musk be endorsing and also funding his campaign as greatly as he is if Donald Trump wasn't the real deal? Elon Musk is smart. So come on, folks, do the right thing. Elect Donald Trump. He's got Elon's vote. So I want to get to all of that. But first, I do want to start with a little local story here. This is huge. A lot of you have contacted me, Rivian employees, about the production lines being halted for Mondays and Fridays due to a supply shortage. So I've been at this for a little while trying to get Rivian to reply. Finally, they put out a press release a few days ago, but Rivian production lines have reduced production due to supply shortages. And there's not any layoffs. Now, in the state of Illinois, there have been many, many layoffs. Even around the country, there's been many layoffs. People close to me have been laid off. So there's a ton of layoffs around the country. Now, at Rivian, there are no layoffs right now. But it's something to watch out for. So according to Rivian employees, the R1 production lines are down to 3 days a week, which means employees are not making electrical vehicles on Mondays and Fridays. That's according to a lot of Rivian employees who I've talked to. They've showed me videos of the production lines just looking completely empty. I mean, that's kind of creepy when you walk into a manufacturing building. If you're in manufacturing, it's weird to see a factory not making things. Okay, so Monday and Fridays, they're not making the R1 trucks. Rivian confirmed that the production disruption for both the R1s and the RCVs, so these are the vans, vans that they make, there has been a disruption in production, according to Rivian. They said it was due to supply shortage of a shared component. So Rivian did not confirm with me if that component was a copper wire. Employees have said that this is due to a copper wire that they use to make the electric motors. Don't know what exactly the shared component is with these two types of vehicles, the R1s and the RCVs, but they don't have it, and they're stopping production on Mondays and Fridays for these lines. So WirePoint's president, Ted Dabrowski, he explained to me that, the big problem here is that this is an Illinois-backed industry. Okay, Illinois-backed tax incentive package. It was valued at $827 million over the next 30 years for Rivian. So they're getting all kinds of tax money, payer money to be here. And Ted Dabrowski says it best. He says, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker gambling with your tax dollars. Think about this. You're betting that they're going to stay and produce a lot of jobs, and there are requirements for them to follow in order to receive this $827 million over the next 30 years. They have to, over the next 5 years, I think it's like 500 jobs or something like that, that they have to produce. There's workforce development that they have to come through on. But you're throwing away all this taxpayer money on industry that's not really working. And that's not anything against Rivian. That's just factual. The electric vehicle industry is not working in America, especially. So, quote Dabrowski, he says, he promised a lot of money to a company, Rivian, but he also promised a lot of money to companies like Goshen, Stellantis, and a whole host of others. This is where the governor is playing king with taxpayer money. He's picking winners and losers. This money, you get this money not from trees, but from taxpayers, from a whole bunch of small business owners, from a whole bunch of small companies, from individuals. You get all this taxpayer money, and then you're throwing it to select few big major corporations. Stellantis is huge, Goshen is huge, Rivian is huge, and you're throwing it to these companies where you don't even know if they're going to survive or not. You're throwing away taxpayer money. They're never going to come through on those work. I mean, come on, level with me here. If their production lines are halted for a few days out of the week, does that sound like they're going to be growing, having job growth? It doesn't. If you're not producing anything, there's no jobs available. Okay, so I don't know if it gets worse from here. It probably will. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but it's true. Ted Dabrowski explained that in order to receive the tax incentive packages, Rivian has to hire workers and keep workers working. So you're probably wondering, why didn't they just lay off people? Well, it's an election year. But also, they're keeping these people on. Rivian did tell me that they're keeping these people on and then they have the opportunity to work 40 hours a week, which is huge in that, what do they do when the production lines are down? They're obviously not making cars. So are they janitors? Are they pushing around a broom? What's going on here? So Dabrowski, he said, part of this incentive package, part of the deal is that you, in order to receive taxpayer money, you have got to hire workers and keep them working. Right? Seems like a fair deal. This latest news of them cutting production is worrisome, obviously for the company, because, are we going to hold their feet to the fire and have them, are we going to continue to give them taxpayer money if they don't produce the workforce, develop the workforce and meet this quota of, I think it was like five years, you got to do 500 jobs or something like that, new jobs, full-time jobs. And it's hard to employ people when you're cutting back production, right? So we've all seen the bad news when it comes to the EV industry. There's soft sales. So that means there's not a demand out there for these electric vehicles. So they're not really selling these vehicles. There's a lack of infrastructure, the EV chargers, getting the chargers in people's garages. There's a lack of chargers just out in the community, right? There's not as many chargers as there are gas pumps. Okay, so people aren't buying the EVs because the infrastructure isn't there to maintain the vehicle. There is also this blaring question that EVs aren't affordable. A lot of people can't afford an electric vehicle. So you're seeing all this stuff hit, and it's causing Rivian stock price to go down. So this is a clear reflection of where this market is at. They're worried. They're worried about electric vehicles. They're worried about Rivian in that not being able. You've got the CEO selling some of his stock. So Rivian spokesperson Kelly Fleckler said they're working to resolve the supplier-related issue to return to normal production as quickly as possible. She also said all employees have the opportunity to work 40 hours a week. Now, what I've heard from employees is that they're not giving them the hours. I know of a few employees who picked up part-time jobs because they're not offered as many hours as they used to get. Don't know. They said that employees, this spokesperson said employees have the opportunity to work 40 hours a week. Now, they might not be making cars. They might be pushing a broom because the production lines are down, right? The unemployment rate for Illinois tied for the second worst, folks, in the country. Second worst. It's tied for the second worst. U.S. Unemployment rate, it's the second worst in the country. So Ted Dabrowski said that the American electric vehicle company or industry is actually struggling. Okay, and in Illinois, it could be even worse. Okay, now there's all kinds of things that contribute to that unemployment rate. I think a big reason is because people are fleeing the state. Okay, unemployment rate, people are leaving their jobs and they're fleeing to states that have more prosperity. And of course, that's going to bring the employment and skyrocket the unemployment rate because now there are no people at these companies. Okay. Yeah, so there's all kinds of things that contribute to that unemployment rate. The electric vehicle industry is not doing well in Illinois, probably even more so. Think about it. The reason why we did this taxpayer incentive package for Rivian is to entice them to come to Illinois. That's how much we needed to pay them in order to get them here. So Ted Dabrowski says, quote, "We don't know what the idling of a plant for a certain amount of time does to their promised job creation, but it's certainly something that deserves a ton of scrutiny to make sure that we're not handing out taxpayer dollars to companies that don't meet these job creation goals." Okay, there's a deal in place here. You have to make good on that deal, otherwise you don't get the taxpayer money. So Illinois companies announced 1,183 layoffs in August, according to the Illinois Policy Institute. Rivian layoff is definitely something you could watch out for. It's a highly political period right now, and who knows, maybe they held off a mass layoff before the election. Like they didn't want to do that. I don't know. A Rivian spokesperson denied a report about potential layoff discussions. So they probably they said that that's not happening. Layoff discussions were not happening and are not happening. Now, Rivian had in June confirmed that a small number of salary positions were eliminated. The June layoffs impacted less than 1% of Rivian's employees. About 8,000 people work at the Rivian plant in Normal. Okay, so 8,000 people in total work at the Rivian plant in Normal, and the layoffs impacted Rivian's employees, less than 1% of Rivian's employees. So it was a smaller layoff. Now, reports of 1,000 people being laid off prior in October, prior to this news dropping about the production being reduced. That's what the report that they denied. They were denied talks of a mass layoff of around 1,000 people. So I don't know. I mean, this is tragic for this community. Clearly, anytime that production is halted or stopped for a few days, the good thing is that employees seem to be offered the 40 hours a week. So that means people are still employed. Now, if you're pushing a broom, you're pushing a broom. But hey, at least you're still employed. It's going to be interesting. I don't know how long they can keep this up and how long they intend to keep this up, but it's something to watch out for, a mass layoff, especially after this highly political period of time. That's probably something they wanted to avoid. That would look pretty bad for J.B. Pritzker and for people running in this election if it turned out that there was a mass layoff to the industry back in May when they announced this massive tax incentive package, and they're not making jobs and they're not making good on that end of the bargain where you build out your workforce. In fact, they're losing jobs. In June, they announced that there was a tiny little layoff. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with in regards to the future of Rivian. But prayers up for everybody who works in that community. I know a lot of people do. We are going to be right back. You're hanging out with Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We're going to be back talking a little bit about the jobs report. Everybody says it was a great jobs report. Kamala Harris's administration, they're building jobs, they're creating jobs, right? You'll hear that, but truly, that's not what is happening. There is a number of employed Americans, and that number fell by 825,000. What they're talking about is this increased level of foreign nationals, foreign workers gaining jobs. There's only job growth when it comes to foreign-born workers. Okay. So we're going to be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Before we took the break, I was telling you about this full-time employment, right? It increased by more than 400,000 people, and the part-time jobs declined by 95,000. And, you read that and you're like, oh yeah, this is an awesome jobs report. It's great. But here's the thing. The number of individuals working 2 or more jobs hit an all-time high. Meaning that there are a ton of people working 2 or more jobs. 8.6 million people are working 2 or more jobs. Wow. So that's not as great as, they're saying this jobs report is. The Democrats, they're going to claim, and they continue to say, that they're doing everything in their power so that way they can, or they're doing everything in their power so that way you can make a livable wage. But the fact is they're importing cheap labor at unprecedented levels, and they're reserving job growth solely for foreign nationals. Any kind of job growth we see come out of this administration, you can guarantee that it's all foreign employment. It's all foreign employment. Their levels increased by 1.2 from 1.2 million. Or by 1.2 million. It increased from September last year by 1.2 million. The number of employed Americans from September of last year fell by 825,000. Okay, so we're seeing foreign employment increase. Kamala Harris's economy is an unmitigated disaster for American citizens. This is what happens when you bring 20 million low-waged workers through a wide-open southern border, and the American people are getting screwed while Kamala's corporate benefactors enjoy unlimited cheap labor. Back when I was in Springfield during legislative session, there was this talk about raising service workers, tipped employees, raising their wages and making sure that they are at a livable wage. So not minimum wage, but they also wanted more than minimum wage, which was like $15 or something like that an hour, $15 an hour for servers. Okay, now traditionally, a server will make a little less than minimum wage because they get the tips. Now, it's current law in the state of Illinois and most states, I think it might even be federally, like you have to do this, where you have to make sure via your tips, if you don't make enough tips to make minimum wage, then you have to inform your boss, and then he's got to make up that difference. Okay, so that rarely ever happens, but there's a law on the books currently that says, hey, if you don't make minimum wage, then you can make up the difference. Then you can make up the difference with your boss at the end of the week, right? If you didn't make minimum wage for that pay period. That's currently law. Now they're fighting for minimum wage, these tipped workers or these service workers in the service industry. And I was in the service industry. If you're not making minimum wage, you suck at your job. Okay. Bottom line is, if you're not making minimum wage on your tips, with your tips, then you suck at your job. Okay. That's the bottom line. But even if you didn't make minimum wage during that pay period and you came out short, you'd have to have a conversation with your boss and show them the numbers, and then they'll pay you. They're supposed to pay you a minimum wage. Now they're trying to fight for minimum wage to be increased, or for their wages to be increased to minimum wage, the tip workers in Illinois. And here's the thing. They want that, okay, because they tax your wages. The government wants that. They want to raise minimum wage all the time, and they want to raise your wages to a livable wage because they tax that. They make more money if they increase your wages. Okay, so this is what they do. They always talk about a livable wage. Really, it just means we want to increase your wages so that way we make more money. We're going to make life harder and harder so that way we can increase that wage and what you need to live on. So that way we make more money for doing absolutely nothing, the government. Okay, so like I said, corporate benefactors, people in the corporate sphere, they're benefiting from Kamala Harris's importation of cheap labor only. The American people are getting screwed. Kamala's donors and the corporate benefactors, they're enjoying this unlimited cheap labor, okay? So full-time employment increased by more than 400,000. Oh, sounds nice. Part-time jobs declined by 95,000, which is great. Okay, full-time jobs. We're all for full-time jobs, but here's the kicker. We've got the number of people working 2 or more jobs hit an all-time high of 8.6 million. The gap between U.S. and foreign-born workers widened. Foreign employment levels soared by 1.2 million to 31.4 million in September from a year ago. Okay, so there's 31.4 million foreign-born workers out there, and that increased by 1.2 million from September of last year. Okay, the number of employed U.S.-born workers decreased by 825,000. So there are currently 130.6 million U.S.-born workers in the country, but that number fell from September of last year. So who would have thought that Americans taking on the burden? Who would have thought that Americans take on the burden when the government imports 20 million low-wage workers? Who would have thought that? Me. Everybody thinks that, or everybody saw this coming. Right. So this is just confirming what we saw coming, is that the American citizen is going to be screwed out of a job when it comes to, these corporate benefactors using cheap labor, and they're hiring the cheaper labor instead of you, the American. I do have to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble, and you can subscribe there. We'll be right back. Woohoo! Welcome to the program. It's a daily show, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. live, Monday through Friday. I've got to play this clip. It's of Jerry Nadler. Before we took the break, I was telling you about foreign employment levels soaring by 1.2 million from September of last year. The current total of foreign-born workers is 31.4 million people, okay? Foreign-born workers. Now, compare this to the U.S.-born workers. That number fell from September of last year, 825,000, by 825,000. Now there's currently 130.6 million U.S.-born workers. So, I raised the question, who could have guessed that this would happen, where Americans take on the burden when government imports 20 million low-wage workers. Yes, the Americans are taking on the burden because we're not getting the jobs. They are. The Dems would also like you to believe that the foreign employees are here to pick produce. That's not true. Clearly, these numbers, it fell 825,000 jobs. That's not all pick and produce jobs, okay? That couldn't be further from the truth. Let's take a listen to Mr. Nadler here. Here we go.
And we need immigrants in this country. Forget the fact that the farm, that our vegetables would rot in the ground if they weren't being picked by many immigrants, many illegal immigrants. The fact is that the birth rate in this country is way below replacement level, which means our population is going to start shrinking. And the ratio of people on Social Security and Medicare is going to increase relative to the number of people supporting them. And we need immigrants in this.
Okay. That's Jerry Nadler saying racist things. Okay, they say that you're racist. You're not racist. That guy's racist. He says that the immigrants are only taking the jobs where they pick produce, the jobs that Americans don't want. That's not true. Here we go. Food, services, and drinking places. Okay, these are restaurants. Led in the employment gains. Okay, I've already established that the only people who gained employment during this last jobs report from last September, right? The only people who gained employment were the foreign-born workers, so food, services, and drinking places. restaurants, creating 69,000 new jobs. Okay, of the new jobs. Followed by that is healthcare. So illegal immigrants in healthcare, foreign-born workers in healthcare, 45,000. Okay, government jobs, 31,000. Social assistance, 27,000. Construction, 25,000. Manufacturing payrolls, they decreased 7,000. So manufacturing is plummeting. Of course, that's what happens. They're shipping out all of the manufacturing overseas. But you see this thing, right? It's not jobs that Americans don't want. I want a construction job. You might want a construction job. You might want a healthcare job. You might want, a job in a restaurant. You might want a job even in the government. But guess what? That's all reserved for foreign-born workers, not for you, because you're an American and you're a second-class citizen in this country. What's worse is that the Americans continue to suffer and struggle under Kamala Harris's regime while foreign nationals prosper. Okay, I told you about the numbers, 1.2 million. Those are the foreign employment levels that soared. The employment of U.S.-born workers decreased by nearly 1 million people, okay? So we're struggling, and the media, they're calling this a win. They're calling this job report a win, and it just bothers me because they're not looking at the full picture. Yeah, sure, you gain jobs. They're all foreign-born workers, okay? The left hates Trump because he wishes to put Americans first, which is everything that the status quo despises. The current administration despises putting America first. That's why they shipped out all kinds of money to Lebanon, and they said, we don't need to call Congress back to approve funding for Lebanon, but we do need to call Congress back. FEMA, they said we have no more funds. We'd have to call Congress back in order to get funds to North Carolina hurricane victims. Okay, the media is calling this jobs report a win. It's anything but that for the American people. It's a win for the foreign nationals, and I'm sick and tired of it. All right. I've got to take a quick break here in just a minute. But I will be talking a little bit about how the media is framing this. They are saying that Donald Trump wants to exterminate certain groups of people with different genes. That is not what he said. Democratic Aisha Mills, of course, on, I forget what channel this is. I think it's MSNBC. They were on some sort of leftist media, and she's talking about how, it was CNN. It's CNN. Okay, CNN is saying that Trump wants to eliminate people with different genes than that of white people, right? That's what the way they're framing this. That is not what he said. Fact check, not true. This is the new hoax. They're going to try to say that Donald Trump said this. Don't listen to him. I'll be right back. It's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Conservative Cat, Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Text me at 309-451-9299. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about CNN and what they're saying about Donald Trump. This is the new hoax, and I want to get ahead of this, and I want to fact check this before it becomes this great. And when I say hoax, the very fine people hoax. You guys remember when Donald Trump, he said that there's very fine people on both sides. He was not referring to the white supremacists there or the left wingers. It was a protest. And it was a protest about a statue at some college. And Donald Trump said that there were fine people on both sides, which was true. There were people exercising their First Amendment right and protesting peacefully. But then there were these fringy groups on both sides. He was not referring to the white supremacists and the left-wing BLM activists. No, he was referring to the people who were protesting the statue and exercising their First Amendment rights and their opinions about the statue at this university or college. So that's a hoax. This is the new hoax. Remember Jussie Smollett, Smollett, however you say it. He said that, people in Trump hats came after him and, tied a noose around his neck, poured bleach on him, whatever. We all know that that wasn't true. He hired some guys to beat him up. Jussie Smollett. That was a hoax, right? So this is the new hoax. Pushed out there by the media. I could go on. The PP tape hoax that, some Russian agents were peeing, or some Russian women were peeing on Donald Trump. They said that that happened. There was no tape. There's no video of that. They pushed that out there. And they continue to push out the Project 2025 hoax. I could go on. I could go on forever when it comes to this. The 2025 hoax, Donald Trump's Project 2025. Donald Trump has no affiliation with Project 2025 at all. So, according to Democratic Aisha Mills, Trump would absolutely try to exterminate groups of people with different genes. Here we go. They're actually calling him Hitler here. However, the only problem with that is that he was president from 2016 to 2020, and he didn't do that. He didn't exterminate anybody. He wasn't a dictator during those years. And they think that, it's his agenda to exterminate groups of people with different genes. And I don't know why they think that he's going to do this in his second term, why he didn't do it in his first term. I don't know what they believe as far as, why didn't he do it in his first term if he believes that? But like I said, there's only one side dividing people based on race, based on ethnicity, based on religion, and it's not Trump. It's not Trump's side. It's not the Republican side. It's always these Democrat mobsters, as I like to call them. So let's take a listen to this clip. Here we go.
Is that we have long known that Donald Trump has revered the Nazis. He has revered Hitler. He's read his book. He used to say he had it on his nightstand. Donald Trump has had a very sinister philosophy, wanting to be a dictator, absolutely dividing people up based on who they are, based on factors about them that have to do with their race and their gender, etc. And when he uses language like this, I don't think that it's a Freudian slip. I think that the danger of a Donald Trump is that he would absolutely try to exterminate an entire group of people because he thinks that their genes are somehow different than his and faulty. And I say this with all the sternness that you hear in my voice, is that we.
Wow. Okay. So we've got John Berman there on CNN. He says, here, John Berman, he says, we have a lot of bad genes in our country right now. They say that's what Donald Trump said. And then he says that Donald Trump was referring to the immigrants who come over and that he was calling them murderers and that we've got a lot of bad genes when it comes to the immigrants. And that the discussion of genes was about the immigrants. Fact check, that's not true. Okay, Donald Trump was not talking about the illegal immigrants and their genes. Okay, he was talking about murderers. Don't let the media run with this hoax. They're intentionally they're ignoring what he said and they're running with what he didn't say. Okay, so Trump said that there's murderers and that they have a genetic predisposition. What does that mean? Murderers, there's something innately inside of them where they feel like they have to go murder people. And that's look up the definition of predisposition. He was talking about, they have a tendency to do something or behave a particular way. Okay, he was not talking about illegal immigrants or immigrants and their genetic makeup in that sense. He's talking about how, murderers tend to have a predisposition to things like schizophrenia or hold a particular attitude to where they suffer from a condition that causes them to murder people, which is widely accepted. A lot of people say that. He said that murderers have a genetic predisposition to wanting to murder, that it's just who they are in their DNA and we have to stop them. The fact that they're pretending he's talking about immigrants is just totally disingenuous, but proves who the real threat to democracy actually is. It's not Donald Trump, it's the left. The fact that they're doing this and they're pretending like he was talking about illegal immigrants and lying to you is a threat to democracy because they are quite literally misleading you. So Aisha Mills there, she says, my first reaction is that we have long known that Donald Trump has revered Nazis, which is hilarious. He's never revered Hitler. He's never read his book. He never said he has Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, on his nightstand. Okay, Donald Trump, does not have a sinister philosophy. That's what she says. She says he wants to be a dictator, absolutely dividing people based on who they are, based on factors about them that have to do with their race and their gender. Call me crazy, but I could have sworn that the left, they're the ones who divide people based on the color of their skin. They're the ones demanding that you make decisions based on insignificant birth traits, like the fact that Kamala Harris is Black and that she's a woman. Okay, they've done this for years. They're the ones dividing people on things like race and gender. So, like I said, they'll tell you Kamala Harris should be the president because she's a woman. Okay, that's dividing people based on their gender. And I love how she uses the danger of Donald Trump. She uses the A there, and that he would exterminate groups of people based on the way they look and based on their genes. Oh, come on. Come on. That is not what he said. He said that murderers, not illegal immigrants, murderers are predisposed, or that they have this deep-seated genetic quality about them to where they go and they murder people. That's why you have to lock them up. And that's a widely held belief by a lot of folks. He would absolutely exterminate people. He didn't do that in 2016. And I love how she says a danger of a Donald Trump, the danger of a Donald Trump. Yeah, that's really keeping the rhetoric calm. Progressive have this weird obsession about being, grammatically incorrect to prove a lack of a point. Okay. They have this weird obsession with, Donald Trump, they want to refer to him as an object because they want to dehumanize him, and they're trying to make a point here. They're trying to say he's another Hitler. It's infuriating. All right, I do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I will be discussing a little bit more about this, but I also want to chat about more about the hoax, but also this disinformation and how it's supposedly used to intentionally mislead the public. Okay, that's what they'll say. They'll say disinformation is intentionally used to mislead the public, and that Elon Musk is the biggest purveyor of disinformation. And this MSNBC host completely had a meltdown about Elon Musk showing up at the Donald Trump rally over the weekend. I do want to chat about that here. Coming up next, it's Conservative Cat. Woohoo! Good morning. Hey, it's Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Yes, before we took the break, I was telling you about Aisha. She says that I'm serious, and it's in my voice. You better recognize that I'm serious about all of this, this hoax, really, that Donald Trump said he wants to exterminate people based on their genetic makeup. That's not at all true. He said that murderers are predisposed, or they have something in them that makes them want to murder. Predisposition. As defined by the Webster Dictionary, the liability or tendency to suffer from a particular condition, hold a particular attitude, or act in a particular way. He was talking about murderers and how they are have this predisposition to want to murder. A child may inherit, for example, I'll use it in a sentence, a child may inherit a predisposition to schizophrenia. Okay, so a genetic predisposition where these murderers feel like they've got to murder. That's a widely held belief. Now you've got people here trying to push out this hoax that Donald Trump is going to exterminate people based on their genetic makeup. which is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand how this woman believes the things that she says, but it's either she's super incompetent, she doesn't know how to tie her shoes in the morning, or she's just straight up lying to you. It could be both. But let's take a listen to the White House. The White House is pushing out this hoax as well. Even the White House is doubling down on this news hoax. Take a look. Take a look.
Karen, I was wondering whether you could comment on remarks like former President Trump made this morning, linking migration, crime, and genetics, and more specifically this sentence, quote, "We've got a lot of bad genes in our country right now," unquote.
Well, that type of language is hateful, it's disgusting, it's inappropriate, and has no place in our country. I just talked about misinformation, disinformation, and how we have seen a bipartisan response when it came to Hurricane Helene, and how we're trying to bring our country together. It is important to bring people together. And tearing people apart, tearing communities apart is dangerous. And this comes from the same vile statements that we've heard about migrants being poisoned the blood. That's disgusting. And so this president, this vice president, we're going to continue to forcefully reject this kind of vile.
This is the newest hoax, folks. I don't know what Kieran Jean-Pierre is wearing here. You guys can't see it on the radio, but she's like wearing a full-blown tux or like a suit, and she's got huge shoulders pads in there. She looks like a quarterback, but unclear how long this host is going to last, but this is one of the worst ones, okay? They are saying that he is going to exterminate people based on their genetic makeup. That's not true. First things first, I don't know why she's wearing that. Second, it's insane that the left goes around and they spread lies like this, and they pretend to care about disinformation. You know, she says we're against disinformation. They're the ones taking only part of a sentence and claiming that's what he means, that he wants to exterminate people based on their genetic makeup. That's not at all true. That's not news. That's leftist propaganda, and they're the real threat to democracy. I can't say that enough. They're the real threat to democracy here. All right, I've got to take a quick break, but join me at the top of the hour. We're going to be talking a little bit about disinformation again, because in 2020, we know that the powers that be pressured social media platforms to censor Americans to control politically incorrect speech. You know, it was COVID, it was the election, all that. You were censored on social media in 2020. So the biggest purveyor of disinformation, according to an MSNBC host, is Elon Musk. And he completely lost his marbles on air when they were talking about how Elon Musk showed up at this rally, at the Trump rally over the weekend. So we're going to be talking about that here next on Conservative Cat. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble.